Hi, most of you know me. I'm Jerry Burton, the president of Nevada Now. Thanks for joining us on a busy Sunday with a lot of people watching the redistricting today. So thanks for taking time to join us. I first like to introduce our board and tell you about a couple events we have coming up, and then we'll get right to the program, which is so important. So I don't know if Trisha's on yet. Our executive vice president is Trisha Methner. Vice President Outreach, Eva Love. Vice President Media, Madalena Robertson. She'll be dropping things in the chat for us today of different things I've already sent to her. Our Vice President, Legislative Action, and the Nevada Now PAC Treasurer is Sue Birch. And the Nevada Now Treasurer is Lenina Briley. I think everybody, Lenore, I can't even say your name right, can I? After 20 years. Secretary is Michelle Maese. And then we're also excited. We have our student group, the Loud Girls Club is here, and Maya Strope and Morgan Renfro. And then also they're joined by Abby Vong, who is their new treasurer and her first time to our program. So thanks for joining us, Abby. It's so good to have our young people here. So we need your input. So we're glad to see you. So our next program, we're behind on this, so we're going to plan a holiday party. Right now, the date is December 12th. So hold that date. We'll get out some information. It'll be something similar to what we did last year, a little more fun and a get together of some sort that we'll be letting you know about. And this year we've co-sponsored again the Holiday Solidarity Program with the Las Vegas Democratic Socialist Association, I think it is. It's LVDSA with Sean, who's been such a big help to us in our Women's March program, and every year he steps in and helps us out. So we're joining them. We're going to have did I send you the link, Madalena, for the, okay, good. There's a link to request a meal kit. They'll have meal kits. You can donate and you can volunteer there. I'm going to go on Saturday at noon, the 20th, I believe it is, to help package the meal kits. And so if you feel like volunteering, they're doing that at noon, and there's more information about that. They've just been so supportive of us. So. And I'd like to mention that we have some ERA Yes masks still. We'll be working on a state ERA next year on the ballot, and we're working on the federal ERA always. If you want to purchase some, I have some that Zoe Nicholson made these for us. She's a longtime ERA activist, and I have some that she's made. And if you want some, the email will be jerry@nevadanow.org to find out how to purchase them. Some of the money for the mask goes towards our ERA work, and we'll be doing a lot of that next year and continue to do that. So that's kind of the business of Nevada Now business. And oh, look at Julia's got her mask on. Good girl. Good advertising, Julia. Thank you. So today we're continuing our activism and education on ending period poverty in Nevada. And period poverty refers to a lack of access to menstrual supplies and education on the subject. It includes menstrual products such as pads and tampons, as well as access to clean water and washing facilities. And people who can't afford or to access menstrual products may resort to using rags, toilet paper, socks, paper towels to collect menstrual fluid. And in the US, 1 in 5 women struggle to afford menstrual products every month. 46% of low-income women have had to choose between a meal and to buy period products. And lack of access can lead to major health consequences. And in 2018, Nevada eliminated the sales tax on period products. And in 2020, Samantha Glover, our wonderful Samantha, and Assemblywoman B. Duran had AB 224 that passed to provide period products in schools. And a lot of us on this program were involved with that. So the next steps are to do the same and to really start learning about incarcerated women and women in shelters. So today we're listening to Nevada organizations and people who currently work and were formerly incarcerated women to hear their experiences and learn what activism and legislation is needed. to improve access to period products and healthcare in prisons and jails. And we hope to not only educate on this issue, but to continue monthly meetings that won't be like a program, it'll be like a committee meeting. And it'll be Dignity for Nevada Incarcerated Women Committee. Some of us have been talking about forming this, and we hope, people who really want to delve into this and help us will get involved. It'll be led by people and organizations that we're hearing from on this program today. And also, just as an aside, there's a federal bill, HR 3614. It's Menstrual Equity for All Act of 2021. And Dina Titus is a co-sponsor here in Nevada. So we need to encourage our other reps to be joining as co-sponsors. We only have one from Nevada right now. So that's kind of an action we need to work on to give them a call. So first, I want to introduce Leslie Turner with MassLib. And Leslie, tell us what you do, and we'll just start off the program with you. Thank you, Leslie, for joining us.
Hello. Thanks for having me. And I'm just glad that there's so many people that are interested in really digging in on this topic. Again, I'm Leslie Turner. I'm the co-director of the Mass Liberation Project Nevada, which is a local organization. We're statewide, and then it's also a cohort that's national, where we are connected with right now 13 different organizations around the country who just all center Black liberation in some way, and really expanding like what that means going into 2022. So a lot of the work we've done, we've raised money to post bail. We've worked on legislation from around bail, and also voting rights, decriminalizing traffic tickets, the death penalty. These are all bills that we were heavily involved with. And but it's like we have to do legislation, and we have to do the work of changing laws, and simultaneously we have to be meeting our people where they are, and we have to be addressing the material conditions of people right now. So with that being said, we paid thousands of dollars in mutual aid work that we're still doing right now. We don't just bail people out, we bail them out, and we also support them with participatory defense through their case, which is a model of organizing in the courtroom and alongside attorneys, where we really just take back people's humanity in the courtroom and help them fight their cases. We also, like I said, we do mutual aid. So we do a lot of, paying rents, paying utilities, providing food, just like whatever is needed in the community. We aim to really fill in that gap. And the model in which we organize is it's kind of like two sides of a coin, where one side, we're really working on dismantling systems. We're really working, and that's the work we do around voting rights, around legislation, around really trying to change the system in the system that currently exists. And then on the flip side of that coin, we're really working on building the world in which we want to live in, and creating systems and structures where we can support ourselves in our own communities. And it's really rooted in revolutionary trust and dependence on ourselves. So that's kind of the Mass Liberation Project in a very brief nutshell. And that is the work we do. We center the voices, experience, and the strategic direction of formerly incarcerated and directly impacted leaders. We support our people to become kind of like architects in their own liberation, and being that we're constantly entangled with the system that aims to oppress us, to kill us, to enslave us, and to subject us to harm, we also have to anchor ourselves in healing, individual and collective healing, and then also spirituality, being rooted in the indigenous ways in which we orient ourselves around to the universe and to the environment around us. So the Mass Liberation Project right now, we have a Facebook page where you can get in contact with us, Mass Liberation Project NV on Facebook. And that's our main way of communicating at the moment. We're still trying to build a website. As many of you know, we were a project incubated at Plan for 4 years. We just recently launched on our own. So we're kind of still building the foundation in terms of like websites and things like that. So I'll pause now and I will pass it to Champagne to really ground us in the discussion. And but before I do that, I just want to say that we always have to center the voices of those who have lived this. And, you know, we all have stories of being on the inside and being denied access to something as basic as a pad. And so you'll hear those stories today. But it's important that we continue to listen and we continue to get information about folks' experiences, and that we're using that information to craft legislation or whatever it is that, whatever ways in which we intend to act on these issues has to be really informed by those who have lived it. So with that being said, I will pass it to Champagne.
Thank you, Leslie. Beautifully said. Just piggybacking off of what Leslie was saying about the mass liberation, Las Vegas, we are a grassroots organizers who focus on abolition and dismantling the criminal justice system. We focus on reimagining what a community and the world looks like without police. What can the work look like and why it is so important? It is important to us, especially someone like me who is a FIP, formerly incarcerated person, to make sure that these systems are dismantled and don't exist. The dignity for incarcerated women is not just talking about a committee. This isn't just a program or a monthly meeting to continue learning, that what ultimately leads to action and also passing legislation. What are things that we can do? Actions that people can take on Sunday, donating to the Vegas Freedom Fund, join a committee. You can drop your cash apps names in the chat, and other organizations that we are also partnering with, ACLU, Planned Parenthood, Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada, and I believe that's all that I have, and I'll pass it to the next speaker.
Thank you, Shim. I thought what we'd do is, Leslie, if you don't mind, we'll have the other organizations introduce themselves and then have a conversation.
Yeah, that's fine.
Are you okay with that? Okay. I know we have two people here from WHIP, Women Helping Indigent People, Kanan and Destiny. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kanan Flegg. Destiny and I both work with WHIP, Women Helping Indigent People. I'm the secretary and the director for that organization. We are a small 501c3 nonprofit based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, and we are mostly concerned with reentry services for ex-offenders and their families. So we help with housing. We currently have a women's sober transitional living facility for women who have been previously incarcerated or have struggled with substance abuse in the past. We help with just everything from clothing, hygiene, family reunification, referrals for counseling, primary care, pretty much whatever it is that women need to get on their feet and be successful. And that's pretty much our goal, is to help these women find a voice and help them find their meaning and purpose in life through education and supportive services.
I would just like to piggyback off of Kanan. We also do the trauma therapy as well. We have trauma therapists who come in and speak to us as well. So we have the healing aspect.
Thanks, Destiny.
And we are close community partners here in Las Vegas with Prison Family Alliance, After Orange, and Nevada Cure.
Great, thank you. And thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Julia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Jerry. Hi, everybody. We have Julia Lazaruk here with Prison Families Alliance, and we provide a platform for the family members on the outside to lead lives, to support their loved ones that are incarcerated, and to help them support their loved ones when they come home. So we are working with the organizations, like Keenan said, and with Leslie, with anybody we can, really focusing on the families, because the healthier the families are, the better they can support their loved ones. As we know, there's a lot of people that have been incarcerated, that are incarcerated coming out, that don't have the family support, and that's why it's so important for these other organizations to be there. And we're actually supporting and educating the family and the public on the effects of incarceration, not only on people that are incarcerated, but on the families and also on the community as a whole. I speak at other organizations, and there's things they never thought about. So if I can raise awareness, and if they could have more compassion and empathy for people, I think that'll be good. And also people coming out of prison, the more compassion and empathy we have for them, the easier it's going to be for them to find jobs, and we can get rid of the stigma.
Thanks, Julia. And Julia also wrote a wonderful book, Prison, the Hidden Sentence. So Julia, make sure you drop some things in the chat for people to, know about your book and also about your organization. And Kanan and Destiny, whoever is able to, I know it looks like you're in the car, or Kanan, but maybe somebody could put your organization's information, in the chat.
I'm sorry, I just got off work, but I really wanted to.
No, I'm glad you joined us. Thank you.
I can add it. I can add the website.
Great. And Tamika, do you want to, we invited ACLU Nevada. They've done a lot of work in this area. And Tamika, thanks for taking time to join us.
No problem. Hello, everybody. I'm Tamika. I'm from the ACLU of Nevada. It's kind of awkward. I'm in a transition state with my current position. So I was the legal advocacy coordinator for the past 13 years. So a lot of litigation and work that we've done in a lot of our prison and inmate work and support, I was a part of. Here recently, I'm transitioning to be the director of community engagement, which I guess crosses over on both lanes. So still doing a lot of work in activism in that space. We have done a lot of stuff. I'm not going to go back 13 years because that's a lot, but we have done a lot of work. We've litigated, is what most people know the ACLU for, is our litigation. And yes, if there's something that's systemically and constantly going wrong, where the other groups are providing that background service, we will get together and go in, and we just have to sue people. That's just how it happens sometimes. Sometimes just doing certain work behind the curtain is not always working. And what we try to do is, be the background support and let other groups lead. We've worked with Leslie before. We're going to be working with Leslie on some other things coming up here on our warrant quashing events and different things of that nature. But we have been very active all the way going back to shackling reform. We worked legislatively, really pushing for that to be changed in the Nevada legislature, which we were able to do. And lo and behold, true to form, the state violated their own change, which we knew would happen. And I can discuss that later on. And that was a really interesting case on many levels, because there was absolutely no pushback on that, because the person on the other side was also identified as a woman. And therefore, it was a pretty easy slide in there. We were also to get lactating reform, one of the few places in the country where the inmates can have breast milk. And we worked with other support organizations in that space, because obviously we wanted those women who are dealing with that directly to kind of be a driving force. And we just provided the support because we were already litigating. It's an easy way to get things moved into law and procedure. When you're already litigating it, you just throw different things in. So that's pretty much just kind of an overview of different things we've done. Obviously, I could go on. There's a lot of other things that we've done. Sex education as far as schools, that was a long thing with public records requests, just realizing that we had some counties in our wonderful state that had incorrect definitions of menstrual cycles. I'll just leave it like that. You can all imagine what just imagine your worst image, and that's probably what it was. So that's pretty much what it is. We're happy to be involved, happy to be that supporter here, and just happy to participate in the discussion.
Thank you. Leslie, do you want to take over from here and we'll start the conversation, or how do you want to go about doing this? We envision having kind of more of a conversation with people who have had these experiences. So
yeah, so let's go ahead and pass it back to Champagne to talk about her experience. And then I don't know if Mitzi's on. I can't. I'm looking through the participants. I don't see her. So then I would pass it to Destiny, and then back to me, and then we'll go from there.
Champagne?
Okay, yes. Thanks, ladies. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Latrice. She was a young lady who also shared her story last week about being in prison and being indigent and only being allowed the 20 pads per month. So go ahead, Latrice. Can you briefly enlighten us about what you spoke on last week?
So just briefly, my name is Latrice. I am a formerly incarcerated person. And I just really experienced the whole brunt of being indigent and being a woman. Just because you're in prison doesn't mean that you should definitely be penalized for that. And that's what it felt like. Because one time specifically, I remember I got caught for having too many pads. And they took them, which left me with nothing. And so I was in a situation where I had to use rags. I've had to use all my toilet paper that was allotted to me for the week, things of that nature. And, it's not only is it disheartening, but it's embarrassing. It's a very embarrassing situation. And I just feel as though things need to change as far as that's concerned. However, I'm not sure what that looks like. So I'm just here to participate and see what it is exactly that I can do to help with that, whether it be speaking up, in accordance with legislation to be made, whether it be actually doing some donating, because I'm a boots to the ground type of person. So I don't mind getting out there and getting the voices heard. Whether that be, connecting with different organizations and places. I have a few ideas as to how we can make that happen. So I'm just anxious to see where we go with this. And I'll pass it back to you, Champagne. As you can see, I'm kind of shopping a little bit, but I'm here and I'm participating. Don't worry about nothing.
Yes, thank you so much, Latrice. For sharing that. I just want to share for a young lady who wasn't able to join on last week, but she did text me, what she would like me to share on her behalf. Her issues was with medical and the fact that she only had one pap smear in the whole 10 years that she had been incarcerated. She's not blaming the prison, but after only a year of coming home, she found out that she had cervical cancer. They need to stay on top of these things. Inmates are more than just a number. Like she said, she was there for 10 years and only received one pap smear the whole time that she was there. I also want to share a story from a young lady who was also not able to be on the call. But she wanted me to add that she had to have a partial hysterectomy. Supplies were not necessary in need for her. She did not utilize them monthly from the state. She would trade her toilet paper, toilet tissue, and tampons for pads. No matter how hard she tried to use the 2 rolls in a week of toilet paper, it just did not do it. She pottied a lot, and she would trade for pads, for toilet paper, and it would leak through the toilet paper and the pads. They would lack in menstrual care. Those were her issues of being incarcerated. my personal experience of being incarcerated was just being indigent. And when you were indigent, you were only allowed 20 pads per month. And for myself, you know, I bleed very extra heavy and irregular. I bleed enough for me and, you know, 2 more young ladies. And I just feel like it's for one, it's embarrassing for one to have to go to another young lady or a grown woman and ask for feminine products when you know that they issue them to you, or also that you can buy them. I mean, it's one thing running out, but when you bleed excessively, you tend to need to use more than one pad or more than one tampon. And it just gives you like self-esteem issues, because then there's the issue of personal hygiene, and it makes you subconscious that you're not keeping up with your personal hygienes properly, even though that you are, but you're leaking through the tampons and the pads because they only give you a certain amount and you're trying to stretch them out throughout the month. I wanted to pass it to the Tiffany Colonel, and maybe she could share some of her personal experience, the stories that she had while incarcerated.
Hello, sorry everyone, sorry for being late. My experience in being incarcerated was horrible with feminine hygiene, because it's something I don't talk about verbally. Being a stud, I felt shy. I still am kind of shy. I don't wear panties, so I'm gonna say that, right? So I wear boxers, so it was hard to adapt to the pads, and I bled over my sheets, and you know, incarcerated in prison, the sheets are white, the panties are white, so I had to use them. They wouldn't give me any more, so that became a problem for a couple months there until I got the hang of it. I learned how to make tampons out of pads from my cellmate, and that wasn't a good idea. I had a UTI the first time I did it. It was a horrible experience. But being indigent, you do only get 20 pads, and if you bleed excessive, you're just left to make a way to deal with it, you know, and it sucks. And you can buy tampons, but you're only allowed to buy 2 boxes. There's a limit on that as well when you shop. And a lot of people traded. I've seen people trade, but I did learn. I used what I knew best, and then someone told me how to make them out of the pads. So that helped, but it wasn't very, it wasn't sanitary, you know, and being incarcerated in prison was my first CAP experience ever as well. And it was a bad experience for me personally, but there are a lot of issues with that, because if you don't have money, then what do? You know, and then the guards won't help you. Certain guards will, and certain guards won't. It just depends on the guard. But like I said, I had bled through sheets and panties, and I had to wash them out in the sink, you know, and it was embarrassing for me, and it sucks, you know, that they have extras to give you, but they won't. Yeah. So it's a bad experience.
Well, we appreciate you coming and telling us. I know this is not easy for you or any of the speakers so far. We really appreciate you. And Destiny, I know you were, so for those of you who we talked about having a program last week, and it was actually a planning meeting that we had, and kind of a private, so we could talk about some of these experiences in private, and a lot of people were willing to come on and talk on the program, and we're so thankful for that. And Destiny was there, and you know, Destiny, we did talk about how many you get. One of the things I think you were talking about, and you can tell your experience, was that people were when they borrowed or were given pads from someone else, that was a problem. And thanks for joining us, Destiny.
Yes, no, I not only was that the standard the standard supply that they give to the inmates were 4 panties for every 6 months, 2 sheets for every 6 months, the pads and it's true, somebody just mentioned on the chat that it was 20 to 18 pads now, which is true because I remember that when I was leaving. With the 4 pairs of underwear and the 2 sheets and the pads that they give you, it was my experience that women would they were in survival mode, so they had to use rags. They used rags, and that's how they took care of themselves, is using the same rag. I seen a lady who was so indigent that that's what she used to use the bathroom with, was the rags. And it was just really sad to see. And like with the 4 pairs of underwear, that's really we can use 4 pairs of underwear a month, especially if you're having accidents. So it's just really unsanitary.
And Kanan, we didn't have you on the call last week, but I didn't know if you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, so I am also formerly incarcerated in Las Vegas at Florence McClure. And during the 8 years that I was there, I also only had 1 pap smear. And I also bled excessively. I bled really excessively, and I didn't realize how excessively it was because I was normalized to it because so many of the women that were in there had the same thing going on. And so I saw, what was going on with everybody else. And so I just thought it was normal for me. And what I didn't know at the time was that I had fibroid cysts that were about the size of a baby's head or a grapefruit. When I got out and I went to, the doctor, and I told them about how much I was bleeding, they were like, whoa, that's really crazy. Like, how come you haven't gotten any kind of medical attention for that? And I said I didn't realize that it was an issue, that I needed to. So immediately after I got out of prison, I had to have a full hysterectomy. And while I was there, I had asked medical, I feel like I asked medical probably 4 times, like every 6 months, to up my number of pads, and I was denied every time. And I had grieved it, but the grievance process can take up to a year. And so by the time, I would be like into the grievance process and it would get denied, and I would just end up giving up on it. Medical denied me every single time, and I ended up just having to trade for more pads and buy tampons on Canteen. But when you bleed really excessively like that, you really need to wear a tampon and a pad. So it's not like one or the other. So anyways, I wish that I could say that I'm the only person I know who had that experience, but actually between like 4 or 5 girls that I know personally and that I'm like close friends with, also when they got out, they had fibroid cysts or something similar to that and ended up having to have a full hysterectomy. So I know a lot of girls just coming out who are getting full hysterectomies and who are not able to get the medical attention that they need while they're in there for, those kinds of issues.
Thank you.
I would just, I'm going
to go ahead.
Yeah. So I think one thing, and we talked about this last week, was like, there's also a parallel experience inside of county jails. And so, I've been in CCDC multiple times, and when my son was 4 months old, I was breastfeeding him and I was arrested and I was in jail for 3 weeks. First of all, just separated from my newborn child. Also, like, I didn't have access to pump or do anything with my breast milk, so it did dry up, and which was really devastating because my son was born prematurely and he really needed my breast milk. And every child needs their mother's breast milk, but him, like, even more so, with all of the issues that he had at birth. And they literally just said, here's some Tylenol, that's all we can do for you. And then my breasts were filling up with milk. They were getting engorged. It was very painful. And then just all of the lactation issues that followed, like after I got out. And also when I was in county, this is Clark County Detention Center, I bled through my jumpsuit when I was on my period. And it was just kind of like, you know, they didn't give me a new jumpsuit. They didn't give me extra pads. They didn't give me more tampons. The girls that were locked up with me, they're the ones that took care of me and gave me supplies. But the quality of the supplies is just like so bad that, you know, I also have a heavy period and I also have fibroids. So I was bleeding right through those. And when I was sleeping, I bled through, like I said, I bled through my jumpsuit. And they only allow you to change your jumpsuit back then. I think it was every 4 days. So I had to stay like that for 4 days with a huge blood stain, you know, in the front of my jumpsuit. And so again, when we're talking about dignity for incarcerated women, yes, we need to be talking about women that are doing prison time, and we need to be talking about all women that are in a cage, whatever that might look like. And it includes just like, you know, it's crazy that we even have to have a program about something so basic as dignity for when you're on your period. But as you've heard, access to medical is also a huge part of this conversation, because, you know, women are getting out, and a high percentage of them are having to have hysterectomies because of lack of care, lack of specific access to like a gynecologist, pap smears, and regular checkups and things of that nature. So I just wanted to add that.
Hi, this is Mika from the ACLU. I just wanted to thank Leslie for bringing that up with jails, because we have had that discussion numerous times at our organization about access to jail products in jails. We actually went, this is years ago, out to Nye County to visit particular inmates that were there and incarcerated individuals at that facility. And the number one thing the women said to us when we walked through the door was, we don't get enough supplies. And we spent most of our time with the women just because we were women and we wanted to hear their stories and experiences. And everything that everyone has just said is true basically all across the state. Even in the smaller, you know, places, some people believe that, oh, well, you know, it's Esmeralda County, they're not going to have any issues. I personally have had to drive out to Esmeralda County to see this 100 and some odd year old jail because of many different issues, but their separation of women and men is inadequate. The women were not receiving, one woman, for example, was pregnant, was not receiving the care and was having pains. And the same thing that exactly the same thing Leslie said. They handed her 2 Tylenol and said, sorry, there's nothing we can do. And it was so frustrating as a woman also, like, you guys don't know to call a hospital. Numerous things could be happening to her. So we definitely had that. We've also received intakes and complaints from throughout the state about some women who are just being jailed or even incarcerated in DOC, and they were on a type of birth control, whether it was to help them regulate, whether some of them were on the depot, which in some cases takes away your menstrual cycle completely. So they had been on it for years, and all of a sudden they just start bleeding. And, you know, because their body hasn't received it, all related to medical care, because they're like, well, you're incarcerated, you may not necessarily need it. And so there's this delay on getting them access, delays in getting them to see gynecologists. Some women aren't comfortable seeing male gynecologists, and in DOC, that was the only one they had available for a while. And they weren't seeing them for years, just as everyone has just stated. So we have had to look at all of these cases. And what also is upsetting is the way we have to go about litigating certain issues or even taking them on at our organization. There is the process. We have to wait till it's completely grieved, right? So to hear that women are getting frustrated and just like letting it go, it's sad, because that's what happens. No one has time for that. No one wants to deal with that. So you just go through it. And as everyone stated, you just think that's normal. because you just don't even have time or patience to deal with it, and you're just trying to do your time so you can get out. The other thing I wanted to bring up is we did a study. It was actually on Ely State Prison. Initially, it was about medical care services provided at that institution. We received horrible complaints about how they were treating an elderly male inmate. In the process of that litigation, we had a person come in and had to oversee all of INDOC's medical services, specifically at Ely State Prison. That lasted for a little bit. After that, we found that they were doing things incorrectly at other facilities, including Florence McClure, Jean, etc., for the women. So we did a study that we called Not Fit for Human Consumption. In that study, we went back to a lot of these facilities and got stories from incarcerated individuals about the care that they were receiving. And as everyone just stated, the number one thing was the medical care, which was frustrating because we had just litigated in DOC about their medical care. It's like you still didn't learn. So I agree with everyone on the call when you're saying it has to go through the legislative means, because sometimes litigating just isn't enough, because the litigation will last a certain amount of time. We could put forth certain ARs, we could change certain things. However, at the end of the day, there has to be more than just the litigation. It has to be litigation. It has to be the policy. It has to be legislative. Like, people need to understand what is going on, and everyone that identifies and has a menstrual cycle.
I think you froze. Leslie, do you want to take it from there?
So that has been.
Yeah.
Am I back? Oh, okay. Sorry, Leslie. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. So I guess we can, because we're nearing the end of our time here. I think we can talk about kind of what's next, and I think one of the major things is that we have to continue listening to formerly incarcerated and incarcerated women. So what does that look like? That can look like listening sessions. That can look like surveys, which is something we plan to do as a part of this committee, is to issue surveys to formerly incarcerated and incarcerated women to really understand just the depth of the issues that women on the inside face. And then that way we on the outside can better understand what our role can be, and we can be informed by the experiences of those that are directly impacted. Secondly, I think is just really kind of like getting in research mode. I think is going to be critical. We need to understand what the issue looks like on a person-to-person basis, but also we need to be able to look at the data and look at what other states have done and what legislation has passed in other states, and then also to understand the organizing stories behind those bills that have passed in other states. Dignity for Incarcerated Women is a bill that I think has passed in like 15 different states, and through different ways. So it's like it is a combination of things that have to take place before a bill just gets passed, as I'm sure everyone on this call knows. So like understanding what that organizing has looked like, and that is also a way that we do research. And I think more events like this, where we're just really centering the voices of those who've lived this, so that the broader public can be informed. And then with that, I would pass it to Kanan, Destiny, Latrice, Tiffany, Champagne, to really chime in on what we can do about this. What can we do collectively to really bring about some change in the state of Nevada around this issue? And, anyone can jump in.
Okay, so yes, last night I did a little bit of research on what the IM period out of Massachusetts, and what it looked on there that they had a few representatives. Wait, can anybody hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
we hear you.
Okay. Okay, so when I was doing the research, I noticed that there was a few representatives, and in order for them to pass the bill, somebody helped co-write the bill, if I'm correct. And I think that if we do more research on how, like the more supportive, or how do we gain that support, or what do we bring to the table in order to gain that support from the representatives to get them to join in on passing this bill for Nevada?
Dropping some links to the bills as well, so if people want to save them and look at them later and see some of the language. So, Kanan, do you want to add to that? Is there?
I'm just thinking right now. My whole experience with anything like this has really been with Nevada Cure, who litigates and supports inmates who are still incarcerated, tries to ensure that they have all their rights met and that their rights are not being violated in any way. I know that we have a lot of attorneys that work with us, but I'm sure that the lady from the ACLU has even better ones. So I was thinking maybe I would contact some of them and see what their take on it is.
Thanks, Kanan.
I'm sure you already have better access to that, but
yes, but no, it's still that's totally what we're here for, like to help though provide that support, right? And we have worked and represented Nevada Cure on different things before. We worked with Nevada Cure a little bit when we did our shackling bill. That being said, this would definitely be in the wheelhouse of our legislative department to really help boost if you're discussing, bill writing, because obviously they have done that. I mean, our current executive director has also assisted in writing bills and has a lot of that information about how to get a lot of that stuff done, or like you just stated, the people, the contacts that we need to make this stuff happen. Definitely, there's a lot of folks that have those contacts.
And I just want to step in, Leslie. One of the things that we did when we were working on the period poverty bill for the schools was talk to the state senator in Virginia that had worked on that bill. So that might be something we do going forward, is talk to some of the legislators that worked in Arizona. I know Virginia had a bill. I don't know if it passed, but also Massachusetts, they have a whole Massachusetts equity committee, so we can maybe talk to them as well. Did you have more on that, Leslie? I didn't know. And did we want to have some question time, Leslie, if there's any questions people have?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine with me. Sorry, there's like an airplane flying overhead. I was trying to stay on mute. Yeah, and I think there were a couple questions in the chat too.
Eva, do you see some questions in the chat? And then if anybody has any questions, you can use your hand or put it in the chat if you're more comfortable with that. Julia, do you want to go next while Eva's looking?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that PFA has a monthly lecture series at the library that's open to the public. And I'd just like to offer this as a topic. I think it's like the third Saturday of the month. And I don't have anything in December. We weren't going to do December, but if you guys wanted to do something, Leslie, we can talk about it, Kanan. But I just wanted to put that out there. I'd like to see more awareness in the public because people are just ignorant. And not because of any other reason than if you don't have somebody that's incarcerated, you don't know about this, So I think it's important. I think it's something that has heart that people can support.
Thank you. Eva, did you see any questions?
Yes. So let's see. I just lost it. I had it here. Michelle, do you want to ask your question about amending Samantha's bill?
Yes, thank you. First, I want to say thank you to everybody who came today and for sharing. I'm going to tell you, I watched the the conversation from last week, and it was so powerful that I feel like I was shaking because of just what you all had to experience. It was so traumatic. And when you're retelling your story, it's trauma. And when you're reliving it, it's trauma. So I thank you for living in that space for a few minutes just to give us more education, because I know how hard that is. Especially you, Tiffany, who said, it was really rough. And, just to talk about it to those of us on the phone right now. So really thank you all for sharing. Really, really important information. And when Samantha, worked on her bill, just thinking out loud if we could just amend that too. But I heard somebody say we had 99-cent pads. Those are the worst ever, and partnering with a brand like Always or a bigger brand that has, more accessibility and just a better quality. And I heard somebody also say we had to trade pads, and I got caught with too many. And what? That I don't even understand that, because that's a basic right, because you can't help it, and so I think there's just layers of this conversation that need to be changed, and through the prison system. I know Kendra's on here too, if you want to jump in too, Kendra, but thank you, Leslie, for bringing this up. And, nothing about us without us, for sure, is definitely the conversation piece. So I thank you guys. Is Kendra on here? Kendra?
I quickly mention to you, Michelle, that Always and some of the different groups, we had talked about that in our program or our meeting last week. There are some of those kind of organizations, companies that do donate, and that is something I know that they do a national period poverty call, and they come on the call, those organizations. So I think that's something that we can join in and learn about how that could be donated and take care of the cost part,
Well, so, Bob Barker is the one who donates to Florence McClury's Women's Correctional Facility, and also CCDC out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. So,
wow, that's cool. Thank you.
And Leslie, was it Vera that was talking about being punished for someone giving them pads?
That Vera talked about it. I think multiple people talked about that when we had our listening session, is that one, you're punished if you're found to have more than it was 20, now it's 18. If you have more than that in your possession, then you get punished. And punishment is it can be segregation, it can be a write-up, and that can impact a lot of things for women. That can impact visits, that can impact getting out, that can impact being offered a pardon or a parole hearing. So it's deep, and like Michelle said, it's very nuanced and layers to this conversation. But yeah, and then you can also be punished for giving pads or tampons to other ladies that are on the tier with you. To help them out. You can also be punished for that as well.
Can I say something? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lucy.
For me, this is all new, and first and foremost, I think I'm gonna educate myself on the things that you all are fighting for, because I didn't know there were organizations like this that existed outside of prison. And I was one of those persons that got out and didn't look back. I did my time and I didn't want to talk about it. And it is hard for me to talk about it, because that was a traumatic experience for me. And I spent a lot of time incarcerated, and I wanted to forget it, but I can say, being in Florence McClure, and that being the only women's prison in Nevada, they don't stick together to fight for themselves. So I'm glad that there's people like you guys that are fighting for them. But from our yard times being split up to just the different changes, the women, they don't stick together. How you hear about in men's prisons, they they run it pretty much, and they fight for what they want to happen in their prison. And it's sad, for the people that have life, you know, or have to be there for a long period of time. And I think that the more people that's incarcerated speaks about it, the easier it would be to pass certain bills for this. But for us being out, we know the experience about it, but the people that are going through it will still go through it because they don't stick together, you know, inside. And then when they do fight for it, everyone is scared to go to segregation. You know, that's the number one thing, you know, and that stops a lot of things from happening. So just from my experience being there, I know that firsthand. And I'm glad I just have to educate myself more on it because this is my second call on a different topic. So I really don't know too much about it, but
well, we appreciate you and we're learning from you, and we thank you so much for being on the program today. We hope to have you join us and keep being part of this. Thank you. Leslie, did you want to take it from there?
No, that's, you know, really all I have. I just, we're going to obviously have to continue the conversation and really map out how we want to move strategically on this while also centering the voices of those impacted. So, you know, hopefully Destiny, Kanan, LaTiffany, Latrice, Champagne, hopefully y'all can continue to join these calls along with everyone else who's on this call now to get involved. Because like I said in the listening session is like, you know, don't do anything for us without us. And those closest to the problem are closest to the solution, yet furthest from power, which basically just means that we know what's going to help us. We know we have the answers in our community. We always have, but we just haven't been in proximity to power to do anything about it or to implement these things or to make our ideas reality. So that's where all of us collectively can create power for those impacted. And, you know, like I said, we all can do this work together. So hopefully that is what comes of this call. And I just really appreciate everyone on the call that contributed.
Thank you.
You guys are amazing. I just want to say just the work and everything and your stories, and I just feel yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. And thanks for everybody who joined us. If you are interested in staying involved, we hope you are. Maybe put your email or, you know, what the easiest way to contact you in the chat will be, you know, reaching out and planning the next meeting and next steps on staying on this. And our intention is to have probably, you know, I mean, originally we had thought maybe a bill for prisons and for shelters, which will be the step after this. But I think talking as we have the last few weeks that this is a bill in itself. There's so many pieces that we can have in a bill that we'll be talking about. And I'm, you know, really grateful for everyone coming on and educating us and or listening and learning what's needed. And Leslie in particular has really shown me the way to do this right. And we appreciate you. So if you could put your information in the chat, if you want to be involved, we'll send out an email. And if anybody else has anything they want to add, we can do that.
I just want to add that, you know, I know that this is the basics, you know, the base for starting around, you know, the needs of the women that are formerly incarcerated and that still are incarcerated, Florence, McClory, Jean, Nevada, JCC, or the camp that they have out here. But there needs to be more programs implemented into the prison system that keeps women from going back and revisiting, keeps the recidivism rate down, you know, keeps a person from getting out and committing crimes because, you know, a person doesn't just get out of prison and say, hey, I want to go back to prison. No, things are uncomfortable, as hell out here. You know what I'm saying? It's not right. So we need more programs in the prison. Currency. I mean, currency and stability, not funding for all these halfway houses or programs, or, you know, that a person it's still like being in prison because you're in bondage, because you still have rules, you still have a curfew. You still, no, like we need currency and jobs, you know, job training, programs that inside that will prepare us for when we get out of prison. I just want to add that. I mean, I know that's something that we're not touching on right now, but for a broader, more broader conversation in the future. Thank you, Jerry.
No, thank you, Jane. And that is one of the things we talked about last week, was this is more than just period poverty or health care, that there are so many other things that are needed. And I think the dignity for incarcerated women could, you know, cover just about anything that we want to work on. We could continue that work. Leslie, what do you think?
Yes, definitely. I think we can really expand the vision around what dignity for incarcerated women includes, because it does also include the ability to thrive, the ability to live in abundance, the ability to be well, the ability to return to your community. So yeah, it definitely is what, you know, it's going to go further than periods, but, you know, that's a good starting point. And then I think, which Destiny touched on it as well, is like, we really have to make sure that we're talking about healing, that we're talking about trauma, because being in a cage is traumatic. Like Tiffany shared, you know, it is an experience that really shapes you. And so we have to heal from that. And, you know, healing looks different for different people. So yes, it's mental health, and it's also the ways in which we define our healing for ourselves. So I think, you know, making sure that that's a part of this conversation as well.
Coping skills, more coping skills, because once you're released, you know how to get out, get a job, and the resources to help you get transportation, clothes for a job, and how to get money. But what do you do? What are the skills you do when you have those in-between moments, or you know, that revert you back to the street life you're used to, or getting fast money? They don't have that in there, you know. The people that were incarcerated, yeah, we know how to get money, but is it the legitimate way? No. And it's fast money. So when you're having hard times, that's the first thing you resort to. Or, you know, for me, like, I came home and I was doing things that I didn't even know I was doing that made me institutionalized, you know, isolating myself in rooms, or, you know, posting pictures on the wall like I was still in a cell, and until someone else brought it to my attention, you know. So they don't have programs for that specifically in jail. So I would.
Julia, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, I put it in there, something like what Tiffany was saying, it might be helpful, is we just started a Toastmasters for formerly incarcerated and family members. And so that's one tool, to a place where you can come and practice speaking, whether it's going for interviews, talking to people, telling your story, or whatever, and being in a safe place with other people. And so if anybody's interested in that, reach out. We just started it, and we've got some great women in there. It's all women right now. So if anybody's interested, that would be really helpful too, especially for somebody that is working on reintegrating into society, because it's not easy when you've been institutionalized.
Thank you. And Tamika, we really didn't get into what the ACLU is doing, but I hope you'll join us on our next meeting that we have with a committee. I hope you'll become part of it. We'd love to have the ACLU involved.
Oh, no problem. Like I stated earlier, the ACLU is here to provide that support for the actual people who need it and the organizations that are on the front line for this work. I just wanted to mention, I was looking in the chat, Florence McClure is part of NDOC. They did used to be privately owned, but they were put back in the hands of the Nevada Department of Corrections. Just to clarify for some of the folks, we only have one prison, and that's the federal one that's part of the private prison institution in the state. So sorry, just wanted to mention that. For
No, that's okay. I was thinking about from way back when I first went in 2003.
Yeah, you went back.
It was CCA.
It was
then
CCA.
From CCA to NDOC, then from NDOC, Florence McCurdy, then back to
It did do some back and forth, and just to touch on it, because I know we are way past time. We have always been watching the stuff with Florence McClure because it is the only full women's facility. And as we all know, all of the laws and the rules regarding these institutions are made geared towards the males. We even had a situation about, because, you know, now same-sex marriages are legal, the house alone and stuff issues, they're like, normally it's not an issue because the woman would go to Florence and the male would go to one of the 50 million NDOC institutions for men. But now you have two women that can be housed in the same institution, and they were sending them out of state. So not to get too far down a rabbit hole, but yes, we watch it, and it does. You are absolutely right. Champagne, that thing has been like tick-tocking like a tennis court. And we do just watch it because that's also kind of jacked, because the people that are housed there are feeling the repercussions of decisions by the state, and nobody's really watching it. So we're cognitive. That's why I knew because it had bounced back and forth. But yeah, it's back in NDOC's hands right now, for now.
Okay.
We'll be watching it though, for now.
Yep.
Can I just add one more thing? Yeah. So I just wanted to say before we get off this call, because I know everybody usually we just jump off, we say goodbye, and we just go about our lives. But because we are dealing and talking about just trauma, and when you get off the call, if you could just take like 2 minutes. I know 2 minutes doesn't sound like a lot of time, but just take 2 minutes for yourself. Focus on your breath. Walk yourself out of it, because, you know, just to get back into everyday life after going through trauma is kind of difficult. So if you listen to meditation, or if you meditate, or if you do sound bath, just give yourself 2 minutes to kind of remove anything that you're feeling of negativity or anything from you, just to step back into a good space. So I just wanted to, every time we get off the call and there's trauma, you just have to focus on your breath, realize that every thought that comes through is just a thought. You can identify with it feeling, or you can identify that I don't have to move on this, but just making sure that you get back into yourself. So I just wanted to.
Thank you. That's one of the things Leslie had mentioned too. It's so important.
Yeah, we do that a lot at work with our kids and everything when we're talking about some pretty serious things. So we just take 2 minutes. 2 minutes is a long time, but just thoughts are going to be racing, and just bring your mind back to, this is who I am, this is who I identify with. And yeah, it's a very good exercise. Thanks.
Thanks. And I hope everyone knows how much we appreciate sharing the stories, and we're listening and learning, and we need you. So thanks so much.